She's a policy intern with the Columbus Women's Commission, and she's also a barista at the Starbucks right across the street. Please welcome Ruby Lober.
Everyone has three places in their life. The first place is their home. That's somewhere that you feel safe, somewhere that you're comfortable. The second place, for a lot of us in this room, is a place of study, but for others of us in the room, is a place of work. It's somewhere where we can grow and develop as people. And Starbucks Coffee Company aims to be the third place. This is a place where people can come together and build community and be with one another. And when I was 16 years old and I needed a job, I was really drawn to this idea. I liked the thought of being able to not only participate in community, but to help provide that for other people. So I applied. And I got the job. And so then I was able to establish Starbucks as my second place, and then be able to create that third place for other people. And for the first 2.5 years of my career, it worked. The vision was realized. I was able to create that third place for everyone that was walking in the door, but also creating that second place, and maybe even a third place, for everyone that was with me behind the bar. I made friends with my coworkers, whether it was in my hometown of Gahanna or right across the street in Columbus. That made the busiest of rushes and the messiest of spills something that we could all laugh through. But what happens to the third place when you violate the second? This is something that my partners and I experienced at the Ohio State Starbucks right across the street. One of our partners came into work one night and was brought back into the back of house for a meeting with our district manager. That meeting was 3 hours long, and at the end of the third hour, she walked out of the door jobless. And when I heard this, I was outraged. I could not believe it, because this was someone who I knew personally to be very good at her job. And as I was talking to other people in my store, they couldn't believe it either. We didn't understand what was going on. But we knew that we never wanted to be in this place again. And we knew that something needed to change. So, when I got a text message asking if I wanted to be a part of the organizing committee at my store, I immediately said yes. Because I knew in my bones that the price of being an organizer, which was high, I could lose my job, was nothing compared to the price of knowing what had happened and staying silent and taking a backseat. So I went to a meeting. I went to a lot of meetings. And as I was talking with what would become the organizing committee, we knew that a union was going to be our solution. And there are two reasons why. The first is that what brought us here, right, was this barista being fired. And we knew that we wanted to create some sort of mechanism of protection for the rest of the baristas of the Ohio State Starbucks. We never wanted to go back to that place again. We wanted to be able to have each other's back. And what a union does is provides you with a representative in any sort of disciplinary conversation. You have that protection. But what a union also does, and what we also understood, was that it changed the power dynamic of our corporate structure. So when you work in a traditional workplace, if you have a problem, it is your responsibility to go to your manager and say, hey, I have this issue. But once you have that conversation, once you have that meeting, you are basically powerless, because it is up to your manager to A, listen to you and hear out your grievance, and then B, do anything about it. This very individualistic nature of how we structure businesses in America is very isolating. And that was also something that we wanted to change. Because what a union does is, instead of going to your manager by yourself, you go with everyone who works with you. You're a lot harder to ignore when you're in a group of 100 than when you're in a group of 1. And so we wanted to right this power dynamic, because as we saw with the company, it was actively working against us. But as we were having these discussions and we were thinking about this, we knew that this was going to have to be something by partners for partners. It wasn't enough that all of us were interested in it. This needed to be something that our store wanted to participate in too, because that's why I was there. I wanted to be able to be there for my partners because the company was no longer interested in being there for them. So for the next 2 months, every time that we were behind the bar, we would just be talking to people. What do you think? How did that make you feel? Are you scared? Because I'm scared. You know, we're going through a lot right now. And as we were having these conversations, we were building a platform for partners to be listened to. And what we found is that everyone was afraid. But not only that, everyone wanted something to be done. Everyone wanted to be able to protect themselves, but also to protect their fellow partners. Because we were all in this together. And we did believe in having each other's backs. So then we started throwing the word union around. And as we were talking to people, people were very receptive because they also understood that this would provide the mechanism of protection that we were now being denied. So on November 7th, the Ohio State Starbucks filed what's called a Dear Howard letter. A Dear Howard letter is our letter to Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks Coffee Company right now. And what it is an announcement to the company and to the world of our intent to unionize. And it's got our list of grievances. It's our list of reasons why. And shortly thereafter, of course, the union busting started. It started off, small, with little posters being posted in the back, anti-union propaganda. And then it escalated because certain members of our organizing committee had a duty to respond. And then those were taken down by management. And then they were put back up. And then they were taken down. And then the Ohio State Starbucks lost their post-it note privileges. But as time went on, the atmosphere began to change. Because then the one-on-one started. On the surface, a one-on-one looks like a conversation. You sit down with your manager and you're supposed to find a way to meet in the middle, to talk about what's going on, to talk about how you're feeling, to talk about how they're feeling, and to come to some sort of middle ground. That is not what happened. What the one-on-ones really are the company's way of trying to dismantle the community that we had just spent the last 8 weeks rebuilding. They are the company's way of trying to pick us off one by one to get us to change our minds. It's the power dynamic that we were trying to correct working against us once again. You sit there, you're pulled off of the floor, and you are put in a literal corner in the cafe, and you sit in front of your boss, and you sit in front of your boss's boss, and you're told that you don't know what you're talking about, that a union's not going to solve any of our problems. What problems anyway? That the union's just going to steal your money. That we're here for you, that we believe you, and that we can just settle this ourselves. And you just have to sit there and you just have to take it. Because you're not allowed to leave. You have to sit there until they're done. And as you sit there, it is very hard not to feel very small and very alone. And that is by design.
Yes.
And so when these one-on-ones started to happen, I was once again outraged. Because I understood what these were. And I didn't want anyone at my store to have to go through this. I got in this for my partners and I wanted to do everything I could to continue to stand with them and for them. But I can't stop the conversation. I can't be a part of the conversation. It's a one-on-one. I was not allowed. So I did the only thing that I knew that I could do, which was show up. When I knew that these one-on-ones were happening, and I wasn't, in class, I would be in that cafe, drinking a latte, sitting with the organizing committee, sitting with my friends, doing my homework. I spent the last day of my hybrid internship working remotely in the Ohio State Starbucks because I believed that even if I couldn't stop the conversation, that even if I couldn't be in the conversation, that if people could just see me, if people could just know that I was there and that I believed them and that I saw them and that I had their back no matter what, that the union had their back no matter what, that it would be just the tiniest bit helpful. And that can make all the difference. And it did. Because on December 19th, the Ohio State Starbucks had their union election and we won in a 12-5 vote. Woo! And this, of course, in and of itself is huge. We righted that power dynamic, and now with the power of bargaining, are able to go back and create that second place that we know that Ohio State Starbucks can be. But what's even better is what you immediately win when you win your election. On December 30th, the National Labor Relations Board certified our election and sent us the paperwork officially stating the Ohio State Starbucks is a union store. And the second that happened, every partner that works at that store won what are called Weingarten rights. Weingarten rights are your right to a representative in any sort of disciplinary conversation. This could be something as small as a firm talking to, something like a write-up, or even being fired. And had our barista at the beginning of the semester had those rights that we now have, that conversation might have gone a lot differently. Which is what brought us here. And we did it. We won. We created that mechanism of protection to be able to be there for each other because we believed in each other. Because we wanted to do better for one another. It's really easy to think that this is just a story about a couple of people working at the coffee shop across the street, changing their working conditions because something went wrong. But what this is a testimony of what we are able to do when we feel that empowerment to stand up for one another.
Yes.
Of what we can do. Sorry. Of what we can do when we want to do better for one another.
Yes.
Thank you.